Hello everyone, my name is Nabila Istiqomah with NPM A1BO25143, and right now I will explain about gender stereotype, a psychological review based on Naomi Elmers. Naomi Elmers' research is a comprehensive study in social psychology that examines how stereotypes are formed, why they persist, and their real-world impact on professional and social life. The nature of gender stereotypes. The division of two main dimensions of stereotypes, agency, man, and communality, woman, as well as the prescriptive nature of stereotypes. Psychologically, gender stereotypes divide humans into two trait clusters. Men are associated with agency attributes, independent, competitive, excitement-oriented, while women are associated with communality, friendly, social sensitive, caring for others. The crucial point to emphasize here is the stereotypes are not only descriptive, describing what is perceived to exist, but also prescriptive, dictating or requiring how men and women should act. If anyone violates these unwritten rules, they often face social sanctions. The career of truth myth. Scientific arguments that refute the idea that gender differences are entirely based on rigid biology, or rather on adaptation to social roles. Many people believe stereotypes are accurate because they are based on a biological kernel of truth. However, this article explains that biological differences such as brain structure are actually very small compared to individual variation within the same gender group. The emergence of agency or communal traits is more due to social role theory. People adapt to demands of their roles. For example, oxytocin, which triggers nurturing traits, is not only high in mother but also in father who actively care for their babies. This provides that hormones and behavior are driven more by situation and role adaptation rather than rigid innate traits. Judgment bias in the workplace. The John versus Jennifer experiment, financial bonus inequality, and the objectification of women in the professional realm. This slide highlights the real-world impact of stereotypes in the workplace, and a famous experiment to identical resumes or CVS were sent to bring managers. Only the names were changed, John versus Jennifer. As a result, John was judged significantly more competent and employable. Furthermore, research has shown a bias in rewards. Men can receive bonuses or raises up to 14 times higher than women for equal objective performance. Women also often face additional challenges because their performance is often overshadowed by irrelevant assessments such as their dress code or physical appearance. Implicit bias and subtle sexism. The concept of benevolent sexism and the internationalization of stereotypes from an early age in children. Sexism doesn't always take the form of the over-verbal hostility, hostile sexism. There's something called benevolent sexism, which is behavior that appears to praise or protect women. Example, women are pure and fragile and must be protected, but actually limits women's autonomy and ability to lead or take risks. This bias is deeply ignored because it's socialized early on. Research shows that girls as young as 9 years old internalize the idea that science or mathematics are not for them, which ultimately limits their future aspirations. Cognitive function and communication. How the brain filters information, confirmation effect, and linguistic bias, abstract versus concrete language. From a cognitive perspective, stereotypes function as mental shortcuts for the brain. Our brains are prone to confirmation bias. It's easier to remember a woman who works as a nurse, consistent with the stereotype, than a woman who works as an airplane mechanic, or counter stereotype. Furthermore, stereotypes are reinforced through linguistic bias. When men are successful, we tend to use abstract adjectives that are attached to the character. He's very intelligent. But when women are successful, we tend to use concrete, situational description of behavior. She answered the exam question correctly, as if the woman's success was simply a matter of luck or specific hard work rather than due to her intellectual capacity. Why do stereotypes persist? Three main factors in the persistence of stereotypes: social motivation, belief in a just word, fear of losing privilege, and the backlash effect. Stereotypes are very difficult to eradicate for three psychological reasons. One, humans have a strong motivation to be good group members by conforming to their group's gender norms. 2. Adherence to the just word belief, the belief that the word is already just as it is. So gender inequality is seen as normal or destined. 3. The reluctance of dominant group to increase their privilege. If women try to break through by being as assertive and assertive as men, they will face the backlash effect, where they are labeled as fierce, negatively ambitious, or socially undesirable. Strategies for equality. Solution steps include recognizing personal bias, public education, support for role balance, and a closing quote from Naomi Elmers. In closing, this slide offers long-term solutions. The first step is not to pretend bias does not exist, but rather to practice bias awareness, recognizing that our brains have a tendency to stereotype, so we can correct it before making decisions. The second step is education to separate biological fact from social constructs. Finally, social structures must support role balance, for example, providing adequate paternity leave so that men can also take on communal roles within the family, so that the domestic burden does not fall solely on women.